This is the Shine On You Crazy Daisy podcast, and I'm your host, Trudy Simmons from the Daisy Chain Group, providing platforms for women entrepreneurs to be seen and heard. This platform is for women entrepreneurs that want to hear the real stories of what it takes to be yourself and run a business with all the different hats that you might have to wear. These are the stories of the tenacious, the rebellious, and the resilient women that are working towards the future that they want to build for themselves and their families. Hello and welcome, and thank you for being here. I am talking today to the wonderful Kate Tolson from The Energy Gardener. Kate, welcome, and please introduce your business.
Hi there. Thanks for having me on here, Trudy. As you said, I'm Kate Tolson. My business is The Energy Gardener, and I'm an energy coach. So I specialize really in getting people unstuck physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And I'm also an RTT therapist. So that is transformational hypnotherapy, which is the main tool that I use in my work alongside intuitive coaching.
I love all of this stuff. How did you have the realization that having a heart-led, purpose-filled business meant that you had to show up as your whole self?
Yeah, so it was really very different. As I share in the chapter, I've been an entrepreneur for almost 2 decades, and I thought I knew the ropes. And I definitely do when it comes to opportunity-led business. I know I could get a website up live in a week and have first client engaged and paid clients in a week from an idea. That was something that I'd done in the past. I knew all the steps, but then something very different happened where my soul-led business, I know it all sounds very bumper sticker and very trite, but there's something that, and I think we can all relate to that feeling inside when we feel like we're not doing the right thing, but we don't know what that thing is. And when that started to come in for me, and it took me a while to really pull together the strands of what that was, and it's all based on a feeling, ultimately, isn't it? So it's not actually about looking around outside of you and seeing something that's a gap in the market to jump into. It's very different. It all comes from inside. And when you're setting up and you're trying to run a heart-led business, it's all around connection and authenticity. It's very different. You can have all the knowledge in the world, and that doesn't always apply. It comes from here. And so it was really about, you can't necessarily strategize and systemize something that comes from here. It has to be something that is a pull into something rather than pushing into something. And when you're actually going into this work, because it's not something outside of you, it's not a business that you can necessarily even have a persona to run. You can't have it separate to you. It is you. And because it's you, it's an extension of you. It brings up all of your stuff. It brings up imposter syndrome straight away. Who am I to have everything I want and do everything I want and follow my dreams? Who am I to do that? Nobody in my lineage has ever managed to do that. Life's been a struggle, work's been hard. It brings up all of that stuff. It brings up any blocks in your self-expression. It brings all that stuff up. It brings up that need for that passion and desire to run your energy so that you're feeling that you've got your willpower engaged at every stage of it. Which is something that shuts down very easily for people in these heart-led, soul-led businesses. And you've really got to have a love for it. Got to have a love for it. We can all run opportunity-led businesses that are a gap in the market that we don't particularly love and be really successful at it. But when it's this type of work, you've got to have your heart and soul in it for it to
whole
work.
of yourself. Yeah,
absolutely. It brings up all your money and your success blocks, anything that's been there under the surface that's not really been a problem before. It's going to be a problem now. You've got to look at it.
Yeah.
Because you're expanding into this business, everything that's kind of sitting in the periphery of you, you've got to work through it.
And what's really interesting in that is one of the things that you mentioned in the book was this feeling of you were using or working with procrastination, perfectionism. So how did you then work out how to work with those and overcome them to be able to move forward?
Yeah, it's interesting. I used to very offhandedly say that perfectionism, I'm a perfectionist, as if that was a good thing, right? You know, and I hear people saying it now. And I had to overcome that to some extent in previous work. When you come to outsourcing, if you want to grow, you need to outsource. You have to. There's only so many hours you've got in the day. You've only got so much capacity. If you're a perfectionist, you're going to really struggle to outsource. You're going to struggle to let that go. So I'd kind of crossed that barrier a little bit in previous, like in my previous work. But actually what I started to do is to really dive into what's beneath procrastination and perfectionism. Before, I felt that it was something that everybody has, and you've just got to get used to it. And now what I realize is it's not the case, because procrastination really is often a sign that, one, you're not into it, what you're doing, it's just not a good fit for you. And so you're kind of wasting time around it, or it's resistance to growth. And so you can actually, when you feel that procrastination come in, when you notice that you're, procrastinating learning, so you're doing course after course, which is a big one. A lot of entrepreneurs do that. If you're kind of lots of shiny object syndrome, distractions, all that kind of stuff, it really helps for you to actually just take a step back and say, what's going on? Am I not really into this thing that I'm trying to do? Or am I resisting this? Because the brilliant thing is, if it is resistance to growth, there's gold on the other side of that. If you just look into it a bit further.
And there's steps to take, isn't there?
Absolutely. And then with perfectionism, when I really went into what's going on with this perfectionism, it wasn't that hard for me to figure it out. Pretty much, it's fear of getting it wrong and the consequences of that, which come from my childhood, my life experience thus far, that if I don't get it perfect, it's not going to be good enough. And the universe, or I don't actually believe in the universe sending you lessons, it's you sending you lessons to see if you're ready to grow. It sent me quite a few challenges where I kind of got my diary wrong on some things and had to leap into a couple of big things unprepared and just do it. And I had no choice, because I'd got the date wrong and it was literally 5 minutes away, and I had to just do it. And that was something that obviously happened in a very purposeful way to show me you can do it.
Prove.
Yeah,
absolutely. You talk about the purpose in your work is to share from the heart, but how, and with the work that you do, how do you make sure that you remember to do this for yourself?
Yeah, so I try and pass anything that I put out through several gates on its way out, really. And I don't always get this right. I'm better at it now than I used to be. But in terms of anything that I make public, anything that I put out there, like this chapter in the book, for example, the gates that I pass it through is it true as I know it? Is this the truth for me? And i.e. not a universal truth that I've researched and I've known personal experience of. No, is this true for me as I know it? Is it relatable? Is this something that's actually relatable to my ideal client? Because again, that's talking about authenticity and heart-based connection. Is it creating a roadmap forward? So I'm not putting out a victim-based story here. Am I showing something that is a progression from A to Z, and it's clear, and is sharing some of the steps of that? And then the most important one for me is it expansive? So that's talking very much in energy terms, in terms of, is this something that's growth-based? Is this something that makes people feel, oh, that's a light bulb moment. I feel like I've released something there. I feel like I'm not the only one. That felt quite heavy, but this actually feels as though I can let some of that go, because now I understand from reading this, from listening to this podcast, that this is just a common story that we all have to go to, and I can actually depersonalize that and let go. So they're the main gates that I pass things through before I put any content out there. as I say, I don't always get it right. What I don't do is I kind of go away now, deliberately stepped away from the kind of the social media guidelines of you should post every day, you should have a unified Instagram feed that all looks, all this kind of stuff. At the beginning of this work, I really went along with all of that. And actually, when it's heart-led, soul-led work, it is more intuitive. It is more tapping into something in the moment and sharing it from the heart.
Yeah.
So it's around the strategies are really good, but they're not always, it's not allowing yourself the rigidity to stay inside that box.
Yeah. And it gives you the opportunity I love what you're saying. It's right back to the beginning of our chat, is that whole self, being the whole of yourself. And when we try and follow somebody else's formula for what success is and what it looks like being on social media every day, and it doesn't work for you, you feel like you're letting yourself down. But actually, when you're doing it from a soul-led, heart-based way, and you're doing what is authentic to you, it's a better interaction. It's a better engagement for you and your audience.
Yeah. And it's strange. You actually don't know what's going to really connect with people when you're communicating in that way. Some of the things that you post in a fairly offhand way, but it's still from here, they're the ones that blow up and people just go, wow, I actually literally just felt like you were talking to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's one lesson that you've learned that you would want every entrepreneur to know?
Yeah, again, this is really going back to that. I touched on it before. It's really learning to know the difference between that fear-based resistance and so if you're hitting a block with something, it's learning to go within and to really self-question, is this fear-based resistance? Is this the fact that I'm about to push forward and grow into something that I have got to go through something to expand through that? Or is it redirection? Yeah. Because when we feel that block inside, sometimes it is redirection. And if we think it's always resistance, and actually, a lot of coaches out there are just going, it's just resistance, power on through it. Sometimes it's not always resistance. And so it's really important for you to learn the difference so that you don't waste your time, because we always get redirection from something when we're going down a bit of a rabbit hole that's not for us. So really just starting to go into your emotional your feelings, really. Is it fear, or is it an uncertainty that's come up that isn't necessarily fear-based? And it is because ultimately you're investing a lot of time in something that's not for you.
And listen to yourself.
This is what it all comes down to. You've got all the answers. You've got all of the answers. And if it is resistance, work through it, because there is a pot of gold at the end of that resistance. There really is. But if it's redirection, it's going to persist. It's going to persist, and it gets bigger and louder until you pay attention.
Amazing. And what's a business piece of software that you love and would recommend?
Yeah, Kajabi. That's what my websites run on and what my programs run on. I procrastinated literally a year around course software, and I was just thinking if I could cobble together a WordPress website, because obviously I've been designing my own website for over a decade, and cobble together this, that, and the other, and I could pull it together and it would be cheaper than Kajabi. There is a gift of time that comes from paying a little bit extra for the right program that pulls everything together and actually just takes a whole leap off your plate.
Well, and it gives you the ability to grow. I use Kajabi as well. I had it for 5 years before I started using it. Whoops.
Right.
But once you start using it, and you can pull like your memberships, every podcasting now, everything is in one place. It is a phenomenal piece of kit when it's used effectively.
Yeah, I'm actually just creating communities on there to move away from Facebook as well.
Yeah.
And it's just growing and growing all the time. So that's my big recommendation.
Kate, this has been so amazing. Thank you so much for being a part of the book Shine On You Crazy Daisy, and for having your chapter in there, and for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Trudy.
Thank you so much for watching the Shine On You Crazy Daisy podcast. If you've liked what you've seen today, then please make sure that you click the subscribe button to this channel to see more inspiration and motivation as more of these stories keep coming out. And if you want even more, click on the link below this video and go and have a look at the series of books Shine On You Crazy Daisy and get even more inspiration and motivation for you and your business.